Hey friends, it's so exciting that you are gathering right now in your small group to talk about this week's message, to encourage each other, to share life together, and really talk about this week's topic, which is good news. Now, I don't know if you're anything like me, but there's been many times in my life where I've received really good, really awesome, exciting news. And whenever I get to hear good news, man, I just get really pumped up. I get excited. I want to share it with other people. The first thing that came to mind for me when I was thinking about a time in my life when I received good news is the couple times that I found out that my wife, Trisha, was pregnant. Now, when I heard the news that I was going to be a dad, I was so pumped about it. In fact, the first time that I found out that she was pregnant, the way I found out was I actually caught her looking at a pregnancy test. It's such a blur to me, but she says that I saw her with the pregnancy test in her hand, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she was like, she fessed up that she had taken it, and it was positive, and I was going to be a dad for the first time, and that was just such awesome, exciting news. But the funny thing was, when you first find out you're pregnant, you kind of most people just kind of keep that inside and you wait for a minute. You make sure that the pregnancy is healthy, that the baby is healthy. Maybe some people even wait till that first ultrasound just to make everything. So before you share it with friends and family, post it on Facebook, you know how we do. And so I remember that gap between when I first heard that awesome, exciting, good news, and then when I actually got to share it. It was so hard to keep that inside, especially from our parents and our family and our friends. I was just bursting to share this exciting, this good news. Hey, you know what's awesome? The good news of the gospel, the good news that God shares with us in His Word and that we've been talking about in this week's message. We don't have to hold that inside. In fact, we're commanded, we have to be obedient to God to share that good news with everyone. And I really believe that when we truly understand the gospel, when we truly understand the good news of what God has done for us in Christ, we will want to share that. That will be bursting out of us and overflowing into our lives, and we will desire to share that with others. In our message this week, we talked about how just the simple fact that there is good news for us is good news, because this sermon series so far has been kind of tough. We've talked about God's original design, but then how it was wrecked by sin. We talked about how sin is this thing that infects all of us in our hearts and in our lives. And, it's the bad things that we do, but it's also the broken things that we are. And speaking of brokenness, we talked about that last week, and we talked about how brokenness is the default condition of the entire human race. And in fact, all of creation is groaning, in agony because of the fall. And so it's been kind of a downer up until this point, but there is good news. And the good news is that there is good news, and the good news is what God has done for us in Christ. The tough part is that there are so many world religions and philosophies and spiritual practices and worldviews and on out there that try to help us and show us ways that we can get to God. And in fact, we talked about this week, that basically every world religion, spiritual philosophy, practice, worldview, they're all basically telling us ways we can get to God or heaven or enlightenment or nirvana or whatever label you want to put it, this better condition of humanity. It's telling us different ways we can ascend that mountain or climb that ladder to get to God or heaven or enlightenment or a better place, But the truth of the matter is, when we think about God and how high above us He is, there's nothing we can do to get to Him. There's no outer works we can do to get to Him. There's no inward transformation that is good enough to get us on His level. So what's awesome is that God, in His grace and in His kindness and in His love for us, His sinful, broken creation, when we couldn't get to Him, He came down to us. He descended to our level. Jesus Christ, the very Son of God, stepped down from heaven to earth, became one of us in order to save all of us. And that is good news. Don't be fooled. No other religion, no other spirituality, no other philosophy or worldview teaches this. Everyone out there is trying to teach us ways that we can get to God, but we can't. We cannot get to Him. But He, in His love, comes down to us. That's what sets Christianity apart from every other religion, every other philosophy, every other worldview, is this good news, the gospel, that Jesus Christ came from heaven to earth, became one of us to save all of us. And it's awesome. Now we, as recipients of that good news, and I hope you are, I hope you have received and believed the good news, the gospel. I hope that it has brought about in you heart change and life change and salvation and redemption and restoration through him and through that good news of Jesus. But now we are called not to just hold that inside, but to share that with the world. You know, it's like this whole idea that every gift God gives us, including the good news, the gospel, he gives it to us to then share with everyone around us. You know, if we have been given forgiveness, we're to extend forgiveness to others. We've been given mercy and grace and kindness. We're to extend that and give it to others. And if we've been given the good news of the gospel, the calling is now on us to take that good news to the world because they need it. Our friends need it. Our family needs it. Our kids, our grandkids, they need to hear the good news. We cannot keep it inside. Man, I heard someone say a long time ago, I can't remember who said it, where I was, but it stuck with me. And it was this, that if we are not sharing the good news with the world around us, we're not sharing the gospel with the world around us, either A, we don't understand it or really even believe it, or B, we're just plain being disobedient to God and not doing what he's called us to do. So as believers, as receivers of the good news, now we got to take it out into the world. We got to share it, and we got to see God do awesome things in us and through us as he continues to not just change us from the inside out, but change others as we invite them into this awesome story, as we invite them into the good news of the gospel. Man, I hope you guys, again, are encouraged by everything we've been talking about and studying this week. And now I hope you guys have a great conversation diving deeper into this topic of good news and what God has done for us. So have a good rest of your small group.